Hello, everyone. Welcome in. I'm here to react to the Missouri Tigers defeating the Tennessee Volunteers 36-7. This video is a little bit late. I was out of town this weekend, but I did have a chance to watch the game in its highlights and to see what happened and look at the statistics with it. And just a really dominating performance by the Missouri Tigers. This is a really exciting win if you're a Missouri fan on a number of levels. Let's start with the fact that Cody Schrader, your sixth-year college running back who infamously played 4 years at Truman State University up in Kirksville, Missouri. I couldn't even remember the name of the town right off the bat. And he played there for 4 years, walks on at Mizzou, and then now he's leading the SEC in rushing. He's looking like he has a legitimate chance at potentially making an NFL team this spring, which is really exciting for him. But having 300 total yards, over 300 total yards in this game, with 200 rushing and over 100 receiving, is just incredible to see that from a fan's perspective, where Mizzou this year has really looked like a team that offensively has a lot of moving parts and has a lot of explosive talent on it. And, Luther Burden is the big name. Theo Wease has made some really nice plays. But to see this former walk-on running back coming out here and leading the SEC in rushing and having 300 yards in a game like this, he's been consistently great all season. Excuse me, the guy looks like Christian McCaffrey out there a little bit. So it's very exciting to see that from a talent evaluation and a talent development standpoint, because it's one thing to turn a guy like Luther Burden, who's a top 5 recruit, into an impact player. It's another to identify, or have more specifically a booster of yours identify, and a talent like him, kind of a hidden gem, and to bring him in and to really turn him into an all-SEC type player. They talked after the game, and obviously Eli Drinkwitz is going to be a little bit biased here about him being in the Heisman race. I think he absolutely should be in the Heisman race. I don't think he's going to get invited to New York or anything, don't get me wrong, but I think that, if he has a really strong finish to this season, I mean, Missouri is, the AP polls came out today, and Mizzou jumped up to number 11 in the polls, which is really exciting. We're going to get to that a little bit later in terms of the standings of this year's team, but yeah, I think Cody Schrader is how I want to start the video today. I just think you got to give him a shout out. Mizzou has had really talented running backs in the past, and he might be the most talented one in a long time that they've had, which is really saying something considering where his career started. The next biggest thing I want to get to is the fact that I think this was a revenge game for Mizzou. Obviously, Tennessee has had Mizzou's number. They've won the last 5 meetings before this season. Oftentimes, those games have not been very competitive. It's felt like Mizzou has really been playing catch-up with Tennessee for a long time on the field and in the recruiting trail. Tennessee has made more noise on the recruiting trail. That does seem that it has started to shift lately with Coach Drinkwitz and what his staff is doing out there on the recruiting trail right now. But it's really exciting to see Mizzou beat Tennessee. Now, just because you beat a team one time doesn't mean your program is all of a sudden elevated beyond theirs, but that's been kind of a theme of Mizzou this season. I know last week was a very disappointing loss to Georgia, but that's Georgia. Georgia is arguably, if not completely inarguably, the best program in college football right now. They have been they've won the last 2 national championship games. They haven't lost a game in 2 years, and they're undefeated right now. They clinched their SEC East division, which we knew was going to happen, but it still stung a little to see that, of course, because you felt like Mizzou really had a shot this year. But unfortunately, right now, Mizzou's playing in a division that has the best program in college football next to them. But if you take a step out and look at the teams they have beaten this year, Kentucky, Tennessee, they continue to beat South Carolina, which is important. Even to a local level, beating Kansas State. Now, again, like I said, one win doesn't mean that your program is now elevated beyond that other team, because there's a lot of turnover, there's recruiting, things happen, there's some luck involved, coaches move, things like that happen. But to see Mizzou beat these kinds of teams consistently this year has really been a treat, and I think really is going to do well by them in the long haul on the recruiting trail, and just kind of in terms of a respect level. I think Mizzou right now this year, outside of maybe a couple of minutes in the fourth quarter of last week's game against Georgia, I'll be honest with you, I've never really felt like Mizzou was going to win the SEC East this season. That never was really where my mind was at in terms of I think that's realistically going to happen. It was never a moonshot. It was never ridiculous that was going to happen, but it just never really, it felt like they had an uphill battle, especially after that early season loss to LSU. It was going to be really tough to win out and beat Georgia, and so that was never really a realistic goal, in my opinion, for what this team was doing, even though they would tell you differently, and as they should. They're a fantastic team. But I think that being able to come back from that disappointment last week and to beat a team like Tennessee and to show the rest of the country that you do deserve a level of respect. That's where I'm at with Mizzou right now. Like I said, I never really felt like they were going to win the East, but I do feel like they have earned a lot of people's respect, and I think that that's really important. I think that really matters because Mizzou football, it's been dormant in a way. It almost feels like, Barry Odom had his moments. Mizzou wasn't in the polls for a couple weeks there. Drew Lock was a good player. Obviously, was a second-round pick in the NFL draft. Mizzou has continued to put out NFL talent. Nick Bolton, the running backs that they've had, like I can't remember the guy's name, Josie. I mean, he's an older guy. There's another running back that we had that ended up playing for the Chargers. Can't remember his name right now. But the Mizzou has consistently been a talented team in the SEC, but they have not had that national level of respect, it really seems like. And maybe they still don't right now, because I think on a national level, I think people are probably surprised to see Missouri there at number 11. Even with what they have done this season, I think they still kind of are flying a little bit under the radar. I don't think they are anymore, man. I think because Mizzou was able to go out there and throttle a Tennessee team that, when the day started, still had an opportunity to win the SEC East, was ranked ahead of you, was actually a 1-point favorite going into this game. The fact Mizzou was able to beat them, and now they've got a couple of ranked opponent wins on their resume. They are firmly in second place in the SEC East, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Like I said, I mean, Georgia's going to be in the college football playoff. They're probably going to be the SEC champion, potentially the national champion again. So I think that this season has really been, that's been a common theme this season, has been about respect. I think Mizzou, because they got beat by Kansas State so badly last year, because they got beat by Tennessee so badly last year, because they had another embarrassing loss to Kentucky last season, I think that this season has really been about, we're not about that anymore. Mizzou is here. They're back. They are ready to contend on a national level. And again, there's still 2 games left in the regular season. You still got Florida, who is always going to be a talented team. I know Florida is not that good. Florida's always going to be a team that you're just going to always have to bring a good game against, because they're going to be able to recruit well with that fertile recruiting ground they have down there. That rich, that history that they have. But, and then you've got a really struggling Arkansas team that, it's a rivalry game kind of in a way. Again, I think South Carolina or Tennessee or Kentucky are definitely bigger rivals to Missouri than Arkansas are, just from a in your blood type hatred type perspective. But those are 2 games that Mizzou should win, and they should be able to finish this regular season 10-2 and finish in the top 10 of the polls going into bowl season. So that is a tremendous accomplishment for a team like this. That's a tremendous accomplishment for Eli Drinkwitz, who, again, you have to give credit to Drinkwitz that he has learned from his mistakes. He has improved as a coach. He's still not perfect, but he is a young coach. He's still got some work to do, but seeing him identify his offensive play calling as a weakness in this offseason and bringing in Kirby Moore, the offensive coordinator, sticking with Brady Cook despite some fan pressure to go with Sam Horn. And he gave Sam Horn a shot, but Brady Cook won the job, and it's very evident now, 10 games into the season, to see why that is. Brady Cook's the best quarterback on this roster, and he's one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. The biggest thing about this season from a numbers perspective in terms of how this could help Mizzou in the long haul is that Mizzou still has a shot at a top 10 finish in the polls. I don't think they're going to be able to get to the top 4. You still only have 4 college football playoff teams this year. I believe next year it expands to 12. This would be a different ballgame right now if it was 12. But I actually still think it wouldn't be, in a sense that I don't think Mizzou still is quite there yet in order to win against the top 4 teams in the country, at least consistently. But I don't think they're too far away from that. Finishing the top 10, getting a New Year's Six Bowl would be really huge for this program this season, but also when it comes to next year. I want to talk about that for a second. It should not be this way, and it doesn't make any sense, but it absolutely does matter. Mizzou right now is ranked number 11 in the AP poll. Let's say they finish number 9. Let's say they finish just inside the top 10. Let's say they win their last 2 regular season games. Let's say they win a bowl game. I think if they did that, they'd probably finish even higher. But let's just say that they finish right around there. Or let's say they finish at 11. Let's just do that. They finish right here where they're at right now at 11. They don't climb any higher, but they don't drop any lower. That matters when it comes to next season. Because Mizzou this season did not start the year ranked in the polls. They were ranked outside of the polls. It took them until they did beat Kansas State, if I remember correctly, before they did enter the polls, especially since they had a couple of lackluster performances against lesser opponents early in the season. But starting the year next year inside the top 15 does make a big difference in terms of what Mizzou can do next year, because you don't have to make that climb. Again, it shouldn't be this way. Polls are very subjective, but it absolutely is that way. Teams that start the year ranked higher have a much higher tendency to finish the next season ranked higher, because they almost have to lose their way out of that poll versus having to win their way into it. So this is a big season for Mizzou on an excitement level. It's nice to see them beating these teams like Tennessee, like Kentucky, that have kind of haunted you in the past, even Kansas State to a lesser extent, but it's nice to see them win these games. But this has a much bigger effect on the big picture of things with Mizzou football, with how many returning players they have next year. You got William Nwaneri, the 5-star defensive end, coming in next year as a freshman, who's probably going to be an impact player right away. This could really bode well for you in the transfer portal. You're bringing back your quarterback. You're bringing back Luther Burden. It's going to be very exciting. So that's kind of my thought on Mizzou right now. It's a very huge win for them. I want to see them finish off the season strong. I think a lot of things are going to have to happen for them to get into the top 4 of the college football playoff, but I think that they have a really good chance at finishing the top 10. Thank you so much. Have a great one. I'll be back this next week to discuss the Chiefs and Eagles this Sunday night. Have a good one. Bye.